Hello everyone, it is Spy and I am with one of the community OGs, one of the community legends, Tsunami. A very old, very OG and very impactful player in the community. Before I hop into it, I'd also like to say thank you for 10 million visits at Time Bomb Duels. That's a huge milestone that I never achieved for us to hit. Yeah, cheers to many more million visits. But hopping into it, Tsunami, I'll give the floor to you just to explain who you are, what you've done, and when you've joined and how you started.
Okay. So I'm Tsunami. I've gone under different names in the past. If you know me from the old days, started as Pretzel. And then as I joined the customs community, eventually my rebrand to Tsunami was the one that stuck, and that's what everybody's called me since. So Sue, TSU. I started by playing Person 299's mini games probably when I was in like second or third grade. So I would be taking us back to like 2014, 2015. I was a casual player, but then around 2018, I started to play more frequently. Met some cool people like Roger and Estria, Jakes and Leo and Ryan. Some people that are also OG. And then eventually, so Jakes basically had part of me joining the customs community. He told me about this, and I had no clue that the customs community existed. I had no idea there were tournaments. Basically knew nothing because I didn't have Discord at the time either. I got Discord eventually, and basically that's how my customs, if you want to call it career, it's kind of cringe, but career started. It was mostly just me playing at first, and I would participate in tournaments, and I found a real liking to it. The competition wasn't as fierce back then, so as a mobile player, I feel like I was advantaged to do better. I was one of the first emerging big mobile players at the time, in addition to like Alex and Jakes and Zello. And basically, I won 4 tournaments in about 2.5 months. I qualified for World Cup 1, and I got third, I believe, both times because there was an original one and then there was a remake. I got like fourth in the remake or whatever. But yeah, I was always neck and neck with a lot of the pro players. I led on lots of duel records with some of the best players, including Killer and Nick and Jakes. Going into World Cup 2, I qualified twice. I was a dual qualifier, but after that, life kind of got in the way, got a little busy, and I officially retired. It was a short-lived career, but I quickly found a love for hosting. Even before I was officially done with playing, I found a love for hosting, and I hosted for probably, oh my god, I think I started April 2020 with my Time Bomb Squads thing, but it got, people were out to get me. It was obviously a very far-fetched and big project that eventually got ruined by people, but I reworked it and I eventually regrouped and started hosting some. I pretty much hosted part-time as a job almost on my VIPs, but eventually I saw applications for customs community and they were looking for hosts, so I was like, why don't I give it a shot? And I got accepted, and ever since then I was kind of just I was hosting almost daily at times. I believe even to this day I've still hosted the most tournaments out of anybody in history. But that's also over a long period of time, so I'm sure it'll get surpassed one day. I mean, I've gotten really busy, and so have a lot of our original community members. When eventually mini game leagues became a thing, and at first I didn't really know much about it, similar to how I didn't know about customs at first, but after some persuasion, some players started to convince me to play. And I originally joined Super Beasts in, I don't know, I think it was 2021. It was October 2021. I joined minigame leagues with Leo, Anestria, Sam Prada, and, some of the OGs. And we did pretty good, but, the team kind of flatlined, lots of people left, so then I switched to Super Ghosts, owned by, I believe it was Aisha, and that team did very well, and we ended up going to the championships, and we won. So I was on my first minigame league win, and my first anything win since 2020, so it was kind of a big deal, because 2 years later showed that I still had it. And that was at the time that we now had PC trackers, so, I have compilations on my YouTube channel of, my plays, but also of other people, I eventually decided to buy Super Beasts from Sam Prada, and I owned Super Beasts, and we ended up going into another championship. And basically, I wasn't supposed to play. I was just general managing because I had a job, and I was too busy. And Folsey could not attend due to personal reasons. So I offered to step in, and at that time we were still allowed to kind of do subs the day of. It wasn't as like organized as it is now because I wasn't as big. It was before the outpour of support from the community kind of made mini game leagues the thing it is today. But no, we won the entire season, and so 2 seasons in a row I'm a mini game league champion. So I'm a two-time league winner, and after that I once again retired. I focused solely on general managing, just the way I intended to. And eventually I bought Super Ghosts again, so I owned Ghosts and Beasts. But basically, I would say the downfall of my customs journey would be when I was burnt out, and Greg, a former community member, got me at a time where I was pretty run down. I was gonna retire and leave sometime within summer of 2023, but I was getting offered a high sum of Robux to leave earlier, but Greg did not know that I was going to leave already. So, being the smart person I am, I took the Robux and I left without really saying anything because that's what I was told I had to do. We had a written contract out. So, I basically kind of did that to myself, but I also was like, this could be my way out for a while because I needed some time. I now have 3 jobs. I'm a full-time college student, and I'm just living life. I travel a lot. I like to see things and do things and explore some things people may not even know. But I'm also 19, and I'm trying to not rely solely on customs community for my enjoyment. We all grow up at times and grow out of things, and playing the game was really fun for me, but it also got really exhausting and annoying at times, especially because you've had a lot of hackers throughout the years. And, like things that are really out of our control, but it's gotten a lot better as of recent, and I think everybody's really better at detecting it. Um, but basically, now I basically took a year break from customs completely in Time Bomb Duels, so March 2023 is when I left, and I came back probably March or April of this year, but it was a very slow process. It started with me just playing the game a couple times, and eventually it turned into people messaged me on Discord telling me to join ITL, but I had no clue what ITL was at the time. Basically, I learned that it's another league similar to the operations of Minigame League, and I reconnected with Colton and almost immediately became a moderator, and then I turned into a ref and a commissioner, and then with Colton getting busy with his life as well, and me being busy with mine, we decided that 2 people together would be better than the power of one doing, a half-assed job. So he gave me ownership of ITL as of recent, and I've been running the operations of ITL, and I still have Colton to, keep me afloat because it's not easy because I haven't been there from the start. So, I'm kind of picking up, the pieces of what was already there, and it's hard to just basically it's hard to just pick something up when you don't know everything about it. So I'm happy that Colton's here to help still. But with the future, I'm always open to new things, and I'm not done with the customs community yet. I think for me, I realize that even though I'm getting older, it's okay to still indulge in your nostalgia, and that's a really big thing. It's all about balance, and people get made fun of for being too young or too old, which is understandable because there's pros and cons that come with both. It's a maturity thing. But for me, I don't play video games. This is the only form of gaming that I really take part in. So for me, I crave that adrenaline from something, but I don't really have video games. So the only thing that really does that is hosting. Because I don't really need to play to enjoy it. I like seeing other people win. I've probably given out, oh my god, I've probably given out hundreds, if not $1,000 or more of my own money poured into my tournaments. I've put a lot of work that people don't see behind the scenes. But it's worth it because it's fun, and it's not like I'm putting it all out at once. It's probably $10 here, $10 there. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years. But yeah, I'm basically Yap City right now. But basically, where I'm at is running ITO, hosting the way I used to, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was great. No, I appreciated how you talked about like your league. You've pretty much done everything around here. I believe you were a staff member, you were a franchise owner. Now you're running. You're, albeit I'll also give it to you. You're an OG franchise owner, and also now you're running the ITL, which is the secondary third party league that we like myself and Veo have no part in. It's a totally community ran league. Um, I'm curious. So you run the ITL. I know that you kind of just took over, like helping Colton out. But the minigame league, when it first started, it was a free for all fiasco. You could sign whoever you wanted. There was no restrictions, no salary cap. People were very edgy. It was like 2016 YouTube. Now, I would say both the minigame leagues and the ITL are very structured in a way. Um, do you believe that the league? Do you believe that community leagues need to be structured, or do you prefer the days where players or where owners could sign whoever they wanted, like in 2021, you had like Sweet, Killer, Aussie, I on one team, and to your credit, the Ghosts did beat them. So, what are your thoughts on that?
That's actually a really interesting question, and it has a lot of parts to it. But for me personally, it's a double-edged sword because when you get too structured, it feels a little too moderated, and it could take out the fun in some of the actual aspects of the gameplay. But if it's not structured enough, it'll feel like it's going to feel like a madhouse. Obviously, people are going to take advantage of any loopholes in the rules. And if you don't moderate who's on a team, people are going to take advantage and just throw whoever they want on, which is what the case was with Super Oaks. But in a way, it also pushes competitiveness because if you want to have a chance against these players, you got to work 10 times harder to get at the level of them. So if you're not at the level to beat them, there's only one way you can get better is by practicing the game more. It only encourages you to play the game more, have more game time. It improves, the amount of people that are on the game, and I think that it ultimately makes people better if you have this baseline of, oh, I need to be this good to compete with these people. So, in an aspect, I would say it's not 100% necessary to be structured, but after seeing what happened with Super Oaks, there was really a rise and the fall of it. I mean, it's gone through a couple ownership changes as of recent, and I mean they kind of regrouped into Super Beasts at one point before I owned it, and I actually now own Super Beasts again, so I actually get to see firsthand what it was like before I owned it again. I've basically taken this team up that was left from Greg and Ozzy's era and trying to rebuild it the way I had it in 2022, and it's with the pause in the league right now. I mean, it's a little bit of a hiccup, but I think that we were really working towards something good beforehand, and I'm excited to see it come back. But going back on structuring and everything, I believe that it's necessary to a certain extent because if you don't have a star cap, you're basically dealing with everybody's getting better. Everybody's learning how to track, two bombs, late two bombs, and one bombs, and all that stuff. And it's just, I mean, especially with the days of ELO boosting, you see it a lot more these days than you used to. I mean, it was still prevalent then, but now you're getting a lot of cases of that. I think it's just you got to make sure it's structured and you have a set list of rules because people just take advantage of anything and everything. It's just the way the community is. And I'm sure it's not just a custom exclusive thing. I mean, you're going to get that, especially with the age group we're working with. It's a lot of teenagers and even younger than that, probably, that we don't even know of. And then you also have adults that they get very serious about the game, and it can be toxic. And it's just you get a dynamic that really can only be settled by rules because ultimately, at the end of the day, you could go to a set of rules and feel like you know what's going on. But if there's no rules in place, it's pretty much a free for all, which it was kind of how it was at first with minigame leagues. But I think that the people running minigame leagues, including you, I think that you guys saw what needed to change, and I think the salary cap was um, a positive change in the community. I mean, I know there's always wiggle room to change what the cap is, and some leagues that are third parties I know have like a 20-star league. But like I think with 18, I think it's a pretty good number, especially with like 5 or 6 players. Um, I don't know. I think it's for me. I think being a player in both eras, I don't think having a star cap took the fun out of it, especially because general managers count as a 2 star and new players count as a 2 star automatically. Like, there's ways that you can still get around um, that star cap if you really wanted to get creative. And I've done that before, and so have other owners. I mean, it really made Greg have to be flexible. I mean, it split up Oaks, which is one of the craziest things because Oaks had a legacy for multiple seasons, and they still do. I mean, Greg did some fine work, and it can't be denied. But it's every good thing must come to an end, and I think that with minigame leagues, it's gone through a couple of changes dynamically, and I think the way it's headed is once 2025 comes around, I think it'll be good because uh, you know, there's been a lot of more people getting better these days. Lots of newer generation players, especially from like all different parts of the world, which we didn't always have back then. It was very just North America with a couple EU players, but now you see a good mix between EU and NA, and I believe that there's actually more European players now emerging. But there's still a blend of like old players and new players, so it doesn't feel like it's out of place. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing. I really do.
That's no. It's really interesting how you pointed out pretty much the evolution of what's been happening, because the skill gap, or the skill, yeah, pretty much the whole skill set of the community has expanded. Really, like I remember back then, you're bad, you're good, but now you could be like straight up ass, like way down the spectrum, and you could be a top tier god. Like there is such a huge skill gap where I believe that different having multiple leagues is necessary. So for a time, the minigames league prohibited its own players from playing the ITL. Now, I personally think that was a good thing because the ITL gave players the opportunity to actually develop, and a lot of our league players weren't happy with not being able to sign up for secondary league, and I'm not sure if the ITL, if Colton was happy with the decision I made to keep the two entities totally separate and not having any crossovers except for one exception where we had like a minigames league versus ITL event, but you would never see any players in both leagues. Do you think that needs to return once leagues are back, like once a minigame league is back in 2025?
Um, I mean, basically, the way that it is right now, I think we got a lot more competitiveness in ITO, but now it kind of just feels like how many game leagues was. I think if anything is pushing players that actually need a secondary league out, and I think ITL is a really good um, opportunity for improvement and growth. And it's taking people that might fly under the radar, even if they can compete with the minigame league players, people that are just flying under the radar and underrated and lesser known. I think that they can really flourish in ITL. But I think that in minigame leagues, depending on who's owning the teams, I think as long as you have owners that are willing to give people a chance, you can still have that dynamic. But because of the fact that there's only 5 teams, it does promote a good amount of competitiveness because you can be lenient towards people to an extent, but at the end of the day, you still need a roster that's going to be able to compete with some high tier players. Um, but with that being said, I think that like going forward in 2025, regarding rules about not being able to do both, I think it's probably a smarter play to do that just with scheduling alone. I mean, both ITL and minigame leagues are done on weekends, as are most of the third party leagues. I think that it's just a safer bet to keep them separate. I mean, because they're meant to be separate, they're meant to be different, they serve different purposes, despite being fundamentally the same. But even as I've started to own ITL, I've tried to bring some new aspects to it, but I've also tried to recreate some of the things that minigame leagues I thought did really well. Like minigame madness was one of my favorite things as a player and a team owner to take part of when I was in minigame leagues, and I wanted to see that recreated in ITL. So I made something like that, work for ITL, and it's just the little things that there's some things that I think can be the same between the two, but I think there still need to be distinctive differences between the two in order for ITL to A, be unique, B, serve a purpose that makes it worth playing. I mean, there's generally a smaller prize pool, but that's also because you're working with, it's a community funded league as opposed to customs being able to help fund minigame leagues, or at least you guys. I mean, it's just there's more resources. It's a bigger outreach of people. There's more server members. I mean, you guys have worked hard for this, so you just have more resources readily available. Whereas ITL, we get some of that, but it's a lot of. I feel like the community's kind of. It's not really growing, but it's not really shrinking. It's kind of plateaued. But when minigame leagues took a hiatus, I think it actually started to reverse that plateau, and I think we've started to gain momentum. But the thing is, once minigame leagues comes back, it's really how do we keep it so that both minigame leagues and ITL can coexist without either falling flat due to declining players. But I've thought about that, and going into eventually our future seasons, I have ideas to bring in more people, more funding, more fun. It's really just about making up ideas and seeing what sticks. I mean, I literally have up to season 7 mapped out already in my scheduling, and Colton is shocked because I'm not usually one to plan ahead of time, and Colton's kind of convinced me that it's kind of the only way to run things. I'm good at planning like tournaments in advance, but when it comes to planning an entire league, there's a lot that goes on that I didn't really realize because I never even I didn't think I was actually gonna have anything to do with ITL. I mean, Colton's the one that randomly asked me, and I said yes because I mean it sounds fun. I mean, I know Colton's a reliable community member. He puts a lot of effort into it, so I was like, I mean, there's no harm in doing it. Uh, but I have some ideas, and some people don't know about them yet, but I'm gonna share that season 5 is gonna be a good one, bigger prize pool. I've already started putting funds aside for it. It's gonna be a pretty good run. I got 12 days of tournaments going on. I am going to be doing that around Christmas time, so I'm going to be hosting probably I don't know, 500 Robux tournament every day for 12 days, and see where that goes. And I'm just trying to find ways to distinguish what ITL is compared to minigame leagues, because I don't think that was really that prevalent beforehand. Um, but I think that separating them and having you only be able to play in one is a good idea. I mean, we have that rule in place for us for other third-party leagues. I know there's some other leagues that have kind of come about. For example, TBL. I actually play in TBL. I don't know how it worked out, but TBL happens to match the only time that I happen to be free on weekends. So I've been playing on TBL on this one team. River is on that team. Fulzy and Anestria. Um, just some of the OGs that I've played with for a long time. So it really kind of makes me feel like I'm back in the old days. But it's been really fun. But I don't think that even I would want to, as a player, play in 2 leagues. It's too much to coordinate. It's a lot of losses or wins depending on how your teams do. I mean, if you're in 2 losing teams, that's it's like you're putting all this effort in for what? I think it's easier to put all your eggs in one basket, focus on one community. I think it'll be stronger that way, and you don't have to deal with scheduling conflicts and if these leagues are going at this time, we got to do it at this time. It's too much going back and forth, and it would just streamline things to make it separate.
No, that's a good response, and you bring up a good point, which is planning. And since you're someone who runs a league now, I believe who runs like an actual time bomb league, you're getting first-hand perspective into what I did with the league and having to plan ahead and the work it takes. And I don't think a lot of players understand how much work goes into planning future seasons and how much time it takes. I used to tell like Jakes and other people that running leagues is like another full-time job. So for perspective, Minigames League Season 6, just looking at the document right now, I started, so just some backstory. Let me just try to get this. we'll just get the dates. Right. So this season was scheduled. Okay, I'm missing. For some reason, I'm missing a lot of. This isn't a complete document, but this season started, I believe, in very early March, late February, like February 29ish, or what? I don't know if. Yeah, this was a leap year. I think February 29 or March 1st. And for that, I started the planning on January 10, 2024. I finalized it on January 17, 2024. So now you have half of January, you have February, and then that's almost 2 months. Almost, yeah, almost 2 months of just planning and having that gap. Um, do you think you could give a perspective to the community how much planning is required in order to run a successful league season or a successful operation?
So, I mean, I certainly can't take most of the credit because I mean I didn't craft the community myself. It was Colton. He basically passed the baton over, but he was the one that started the race. Like he's the one that started this all, and I mean I wouldn't have a place without him. I mean I could have gone to anywhere else, but I just ITL really took off, and it was the first one that I heard of personally when I came back, and people begged me to check it out. I've had people, even when I was in my off time, people were always begging me to host and do this and do that. And I was like, just, it'll come, but you just got to be patient. And I think patience is really what it comes down to. I mean, when you're planning something this big, it's really all about being able to fully commit through a project, which if you don't have the attention span or the balance of your life to be able to balance everything, I mean, it really is a full-time job, and if you already have jobs and school and extracurriculars, it's really just it could be your coffin if you're not ready for it. And luckily, I think because I have hosting experience and I've coordinated a lot of tournaments, some of them of which are long term. I've done tournaments that have lasted a couple months. I think it's given me already some experience that I needed going into it because it's not a job you can just fill in when you don't have experience doing it. Which is why I think when you're trying to find somebody to run minigame leagues, there really wasn't a particular candidate that stood out because there's nobody that really has the first-hand experience running things like you do. I mean, obviously you have people like Colton, but I mean, everybody who is perfectly capable have their hands tied already with their own projects. So, I mean, it takes an army to do something too. I mean, minigame leagues and ITL aren't what they are without the players. And I mean, without the player support, I mean, we could do all this work and it doesn't actually mean anything. So, I mean, it's nice that the players, I think, do recognize in a sense how much work goes into it. I mean, it's not just work, it's Robux, it's coordination, it's communication, it's finding people to actually help run it and sacrifice them actually taking part in playing to just staff it instead. Like these people that are running ITL have chosen to give up themselves playing to help run this. Like it takes a whole group of people to really make it work. And I think that's what Colton realized, and I think he realized he can't do it alone. And he had other commissioners helping, but they were kind of in and out, so he needed somebody reliable. And even I didn't know if I'd be reliable, but I told him, I was upfront with him. I was like, I know you need somebody, and he offered it to me already, and I was like, I don't mind doing it. I can't promise I'll be completely active. I mean, I have 3 jobs, and especially from January to June, I am completely swamped, but I will do whatever I can to help make sure that the community can continue to thrive. And I personally appreciate everything he does. And I mean, even now, now that I've kind of started to sprinkle some of my own flavor into the community per se, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I took a lot of convincing of things for Colton too. Like there's things I wanted to fundamentally change, and change is scary when you have so much on the line. I mean, if you put blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of time into something, obviously you want it to work out. And, a little change in the dynamic can turn people off. But I've just learned that by offering the same aspects of what was there before and then add on to it is usually the best way to keep it going. Because like I don't want to change what ITL is. I just want to take it and run with some new ideas. And even if it's just piloting them and just testing out what works and what doesn't. I mean, I think the community has grown to a point where they're very loyal to us now. And mini game leagues, I think that there's a lot of loyalty being built with certain players. And I mean, it doesn't go unnoticed. But to be unbiased, I mean, I would never specifically call out certain people. But I mean, whenever people are really helping us and acknowledging our work, I mean, it's really appreciated. I mean, with this community, I knew with costs being high, I mean, it takes a lot of money. It's people don't realize it, but I mean, the prize pool just doesn't come from the money tree. Like you got to actually have people to sponsor it. So, I mean, my thoughts was instead of doing 4 seasons a year with huge prize pools, we could do big prize pools, but less seasons in a year, but just extend the seasons longer. So it's still time that you can spend playing, but it's basically there was going to be 4 seasons this year, and I'm like, why don't we just slow down a little bit? I'll do my 12 days of Christmas tournaments. That's going to be enough to keep people interested in ITL while there's a break. I mean, most people can't play during the holidays anyway. I mean, you got Christmas, Hanukkah, Ramadan, New Year's. You got a lot of things conflicting with uh the community itself. Family obviously comes first. So I was like, instead of the next season starting right away, why don't we just space it out? Because then it's a less waste of resources because people don't want extremely quick seasons because then they don't feel as meaningful if you actually win. If you keep doing back-to-back seasons all the time, the more seasons that happen, the more you're going to forget the older ones. And I think people, it's important to people to win, and it's nostalgic for people to really enjoy the experience because this is a game that some people have been playing even when it was Person 299 focused, probably since the mid 2010s, if not earlier. So, I mean, it's really just trying to preserve the actual spirit of tournaments while also planning it accurately so that you don't lose that spirit. It's a lot of just teeter totter, going back and forth, seeing what works and what doesn't. It's a lot of coordinating, and as I said before, a lot of teamwork, a lot of focus on how to improve efficiency and operations. And some people could say this is just a game; it's really not that deep. And you're completely right, which is why complicate things when you can just find ways to keep the community going without letting simple issues ruin it all. Like I mean, it's just it may be small to some, but for some people it means a lot. I mean, some people go through things. I think COVID really messed a lot of us up. I mean, some people are probably already addicted online, but I mean, not all of us were. Me personally, I've never really played much until COVID, which is when I got more involved in customs. I mean, I started a little before that, but when I really took off was in 2020. It gave us all extra time on our hands at a time we needed it, and I think the communities really helped kind of fill our void during like a global pandemic. And with that, I mean, it gave us time to really plan things out. But now that like life is moving on and we're going back to normal, I think that's also another factor that kind of makes it hard to plan. And I'm sure you see this yourself.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's yeah. I mean, COVID was that's something we never thought would happen. And I'm appreciative of all the work that you guys do. I'm appreciative of all the work that Colton does. I'm appreciative of all the work that the past people from Customs have done. I mean, just because people aren't here anymore doesn't mean that you shouldn't acknowledge it, or they shouldn't be seen. I mean, I think Spy, you've done a good job at making sure people have felt recognized even after their glory days. I mean, it's just it's even with like third party leagues like ITL, TBL, Rogues Clan, or whatever. Whatever you're doing in your free time, it's all somebody has to do it and start it and plan it all. So always just remember that, and that's kind of a message I have for the community.
100%, and obviously we appreciate you as well. Like, it's the community definitely respects you, and it's like a top reason why I wanted to bring you on because we asked people who they wanted to see on the podcast, and obviously Jake's was first because this guy, Jake's is Jake's, right? But then
Of course.
you came second, and like you're a name that you're a name that's been around, but like you're not always like people. You're not a player. You're like a community leader. That would be the most appropriate term for me to say. And I really do wish that people saw the hard work that went into funding events, running events, and coordinating events, cause it's yeah, it really takes a lot of time out of you. It sucks the daylight right out of you. Not everyone's appreciative. There's a mental abuse that you got to take at the end of the day. But as long as I believe our goal remains the same. As long as we make people smile, it's all worth it at the end of the day. And I believe we've done a good job at creating a difference and making a difference in the world, and creating lifelong friendships and happiness.
Yeah, no, you that's perfectly said. And at the end of the day, people fight, people argue. I mean, even we've had our disagreements, and I mean, Veo and I mean, we've all had. That's the thing. When you have people that are bringing different ideas to the table, there's natural instinct to want to go with your own and realize, oh, I mean, you only see the good parts of your ideas and not the bad. And that would be me sometimes. But I mean, everybody runs into that trap sometimes. That's also comes with it comes with burnout. It comes with being drained. It comes from constant abuse from community members, which is something that you guys face, but also, a lot of people face. And it's just, I think that at the end of the day, even though there's ups and downs in the community, which I'm sure most community members have had, it's really about remembering what's most important, and it's to have fun. And I think that that's what some people miss. But I mean, what started this game was, you know, weekly tournaments meant to bring the community together just to have fun. The prize pools weren't even all that interesting back then. I mean, people would probably go crazy over 100 Robux back then. I mean, it's not the same atmosphere as it is now. It was solely for the purpose of being able to play with your online friends back then and to have fun. And I think that that's really just it's nice to see that some people still appreciate that. And I personally, if I could go back, I think I would probably loosen up a little bit at times and realize that, I started this when I was a lot younger, and I wish I would have just soaked it in more and just enjoyed it for what it was instead of stressing out so much and letting people get to me, because ultimately people can say whatever they want, but it's really how you take it, which is the way that it'll affect you. And I've pretty much learned, I've heard almost every insult in the book. I've had so many threats and I've had so many people get mad at me, but at the end of the day, they can really do whatever they want, but it's not going to change it's not going to change my call that I made in the tournament. It's not going to change who won the prize. It's not going to change any of the events from that night. It's really just people getting out their anger. And that's the thing, that we're all online. It's online people. We don't know each other in person. So what we present on our online personas can be completely different in person. And I think people have to realize that there are real people behind the screens. And at the end of the day, this community is all about having fun. And, going forward, I want to promote that and continue to instill the fact that this community is fun based, not fund based. I think people should have fun, but not rely on funding to have fun. I think that funding is a privilege, and I think that when you have a community sponsored league, it's even more important to acknowledge the fact that it's really up to the community members to help sponsor this, or else it may not happen or equate to any sort of prize that people are expecting. And I don't know, it's just and I just think that even with minigame leagues, like, people have to realize that it's not all about the prize pool. Yes, it's over 100,000 Robux. Yes, it's a really good prize, and yes, it'd be great to have, but I think having a prize for second and third place is also really nice to have, and I think that it makes it feel more reachable. But I think at the end of the day, it's not about the Robux. It should be about having fun, and then the Robux follows. Like, I always told my team owners that I didn't really care about payouts. I don't really care if I'm getting 100. I don't really care if I'm getting 2,000. I don't really care. It's all about having fun. So I would always let other people have my my funds. Or, if they pressured me to say yes because they felt bad, I would just put it towards tournaments. I've always been someone who doesn't really like. I don't care about having limiteds on my Roblox account. I don't really care about this. I don't care about that. I mean, people get beamed all the time. Like, I don't care enough about any of that stuff. So whenever I'm getting Robux, I like to put it back in the tournaments. And I think that, like, that's really what the spirit of this community should be about. Like, I know, for example, OSA, it was like Osa, I don't know how you pronounce it. He's put out a lot of Robux in the community, and so has Mr., I believe. They put out a lot of Robux into at least ITL from my perspective, and and they don't really expect anything in return, which is kind of the energy that I used to do, and I'm happy to see that other people have kind of filled in the gaps from when I've left. And I'm sorry for leaving customs community so abruptly. It wasn't exactly planned out. It wasn't meant to be like a oh goodbye forever, but it was more so I needed a break, but I didn't really want to like dwell on it and have people try and convince me to come back, because I've done that before. And I've said that I was going to leave and people convinced me to stay, and then it just ended up being worse for me and for them, because I just felt like I wasn't really my best self hosting and performing as a community member. But I would love to, if you ever wanted to collab on things, or if I ever were to return, I would be happy to continue your legacy of what you did. I mean, I know you're very busy, and so is Veo. I mean, Veo's been helping me change server settings a lot for ITO, but I know he's busy and he still goes out of his way to do it. I'm always one message away, and I want you to always know that, even if I'm not like around or active. I think because of the nostalgia factor, it's pretty easy to bring me back. Also, simply because of the fact I don't play video games, really, this is kind of my only thing. But I appreciate all of you guys have done, and I appreciate all of our past hosts too. Like Shui was a real big impact in the community. He had a lot of he did a lot of good videos related to the customs community. He brought a lot of people to the game, but he also exposed people to like the fact that you can use customs on a YouTube format and do relatively well. Like, I think when we started using TikTok and YouTube to our advantage, it really was like, wow, that's crazy how big a community can grow. I mean, were a couple TikToks that were done that just completely changed the game for customs, and it's just like, it's crazy how much the community's grown, and I'm really happy to see that it's still growing. And you guys are still coming up with fresh ideas and things, and putting out new holiday updates. So I mean, I wasn't in the server for a long time. Today's my first day back in the server, probably since March 2023. But
Wow.
it wasn't. I think some people didn't realize I was gone, but it was just it wasn't for any necessary, like, it wasn't necessarily for any reason, but it was just, I don't know. I was busy, and life got in the way, and the Robux was Robux, but I literally didn't even care about the Robux. I spent it all on Please Donate. I donated the entirety of what I got from the Robux to other players. I didn't even keep any for myself. So it really wasn't about Greg giving me Robux to leave. I needed the opportunity to get out without being pulled back in. Because when people pressure you and people talk down to you so often, it eventually, and it's not, at first it's manageable, but then when it builds up, you kind of get burnt out, and that's kind of, what happened to me. And I'm sure that you've had times like that too, like where you've gotten burnt out. I mean, because it's the bigger the community is, that's the more you have to be responsible for, and it's the more you have to run, and the more people that are involved in the community, that's more people you have to moderate, it's more people you have to coordinate, and it's more staff that you need to hire, and not everybody's reliable as staff. I know it's very hard to give out moderating powers because people can easily abuse it, which is why I think it's good that you have the panel system. It's just, you never know what you're going to get. It's always a mixed bag. But I'm always open to new ideas, and if you ever need help with anything, you can always reach out. I mean, I think this podcast is a really cool idea, and I'm glad that you're still elevating yourself in the community with new ideas. And I think Jake's was a very good first candidate for this, as he is one of the most impactful community members of all time. And I think he was he had a legacy, and I'm glad that you interviewed him. He's a good person to interview first, and he's always been someone that I can talk to, and vice versa, of course. And you guys are always everybody's always welcome to rant their frustrations and things that they want changed to me. I'm always open to suggestions.
Wow, yeah, no, that was very touching and amazing, and we'd love to have you back. Whether we decide to obviously bring back public tournaments, because in 2024 we've only hosted one public tournament, and yeah, it's they're not easy to host, as you may know. Were you at the last public tournament, the only one we had this year, a couple of weeks ago?
I was not. If it was on a weekend, I have a job that travels Friday through Monday every weekend from January to June. So I'm not usually free, but I can work around that. What
Oh,
happened with that one?
well, okay, I'll just give you some backstory as to how much the community has grown and why it's really non-realistic and why it's so tiring to do. So the only tournament of 2024, we didn't advertise the prize pool, although the winner did get 5K, second place got 3K, third got 2K. But to just rephrase, you were talking about smaller prize pools when we first started. The first prize pool, the first Veo Spy tournament we had, the prize pool was 250 Robux. And this
What?
was, yeah, yeah. And thankfully, Bricks, great guy, came to bail us out a bit because that was pretty depressing. So we were able to get it up to 1,000 consistently. But that was during a time when I had $3.13 in my bank account. And with a prize pool of 250 Robux, that's like what, equivalent to like $2.50, $3
Yeah.
maybe. Um, People showed up, and I was like, wow, people really want to play. They really want to show off. And nowadays, we have tournaments, right? Oh, 5,000 Robux, that's nothing. 10K Robux, that's nothing. Like, we're doing 5K now. Like, that was like the prize pool for World Cups 1 and 2. So, and now leagues, don't even get me started on leagues. Leagues is a totally different story, where Robux is just getting thrown at. But it's definitely interesting to see how much we've evolved as a community and as a player base, because I believe that people are getting more competitive and taking Time Bomb a little more seriously. But I'll let you answer that after I tell you about what happened at the tournament. Um, so the tournament this year, we had a player cap of 160 players. That filled up in about 5 seconds, and then
Wow.
after that, we had a queue of at least 30 people trying to get in. So yeah, as you can see, actually there is a YouTube video that I'll share with you. I think you'll find very interesting, which was the admin view where me, Jay, and Toka were moderating the tournament. So now these tournaments require 3 moderators, and I believe we did a good job at running it and spectating everyone. We had a totally new system that I don't think you're aware of, where we can directly spectate players now instead of using the spectate system. Um, so the new mechanics we've been adding to streamline the process has definitely been interesting, and I'll definitely share the video with you after the podcast. But yeah, wow, yeah, it's yeah, whether you want to help out with leagues 2025 or potentially bringing back public tournaments, although as he mentioned, me and VO are very busy. We can't be setting like 50 player limits or 100 player limits anymore like we used to, because we're simply just not on. We're always busy. But hopefully once VO gets like maybe a server system set up where you can teleport to like a 200 player server from within customs, we could have endless tournaments forever and ever and ever. And that would be neat to see. So yeah, if you definitely want opportunity to come back and do some work, that would be goaded.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I'm good to commit to that. I think with ITO, we've got it to the point where it's almost self-running. It's really to the point where it's like you just gotta. I mean, I have Ryan, known as Spoke or whatever, Spokey, whatever. He is our lead of staffing, and we hired somebody to handle all the staffing of all of our events, which really streamlined things because you don't have to go through 4 people now to confirm if somebody's going to be refing and streaming. We have somebody hired that specifically goes out of their way to go through all of our refing network and streaming network to see if anybody wants to run these, and then we pay them for it. It's there's certain ways to make it so it's streamlined, and I think because of that, I thought it was going to take a lot more of my time, and it really hasn't. I got a pretty easy schedule right now, I guess. Two of my jobs are only half the year, so I got one job right now. I'm taking 4 classes, and I'm not completely free, but I would love to help. Just as you guys aren't completely free, or else I'm sure you guys would do more too. It's just I think the server teleport feature is a great idea. I know it's been in the works for a couple of years. I know there's been talks about it in the past. But if we actually saw that come to fruition, I think it'd be a game changer for the community. And I think that with promoting the actual community, I think we need to hire more reliable people that can actually consistently promote the community. If you had viral TikToks more often than to what you had in like 2022 or whatever, like if you had somebody that basically what would happen is we'd get viral TikToks, work off those people, and then it would slow down and eventually stop with certain people, and then they'd leave the community. I think you got people that are able to prove that they're consistent in promoting the community, so that there's not inconsistencies. But we also got to be prepared for the growth of the community and having necessary staffing if needed. But I think that because of all these new generation players that came from the last TikTok era, I think we have enough players that have come in, learned the community, and have shown that they're capable of staffing if needed, that we would be okay if we expanded rapidly again and had a more bigger output of people. I think that we've grown it so that this community could eventually become self-sustaining even without you guys, and if I was to participate even without me. I think it's just having the right people, which is hard because there's you get a mixed bag in this type of community. But Leagues 2025 sounds very exciting. I am down to host public tournaments again, and I don't think that 160 tournaments is something that should happen every day. It's not good. It's Roblox is also it gets messy sometimes. They don't teleport people in. They want you to null the round, but you can't. It's really, you can't null every round, so nobody's it's never going to be perfect. So I think with tournaments, capping it at around 20 to 40 is usually the safer bet. But it's really just about, like we said before, communication. If you had a hosting team, I think it would, you got to bring back what you had before, because when we were actually, when Customs was doing its best numbers, it was when you were having the consistent tournaments. It's when you were able to promote on TikTok and YouTube that you were having these tournaments. It was able to promote leagues effectively. Just because we're getting older doesn't mean the game has to, it doesn't mean that the game has to shut a door on something. I think that's why we bring in new people and supplementary resources to kind of keep the community boosted, because the community is still doing good. You're adding new segments to the community. In a business standpoint, there's no reason that Customs has any, burnout anytime soon. But, I think Time Bomb Duels was a great feature. I think so many people just want to play Time Bomb, and I think Time Bomb Duels was a great way to kind of combat that whole situation. So, you could focus on really any game you want on Customs as long as you have Time Bomb Duels. You can focus on, if you ever had a platform punch out, or if you ever had, now you have iceberg punch out. If people wanted tournaments in that, it's really up to what the consumer wants. And I've had so many people who tell me that they want sword fight tournaments and floors lava tournaments, and that's all a possibility. It's just, there's always room for improvement and new ideas. And I think that, I would love to come back and help you guys, because I think that you guys have a vision, and, you obviously need help fulfilling that if you want it to continue growing. It doesn't just happen with one person. It takes a team, like you said before. So, I think the sky's the limit and the future is bright. And I think that, because of all these people in the community, they really make the community what it is. But, obviously the work of all the people that are behind it doesn't go unnoticed. I want to send one more thank you to you for inviting me on the podcast. And, I think that this was a great way to kind of, some people have misconceptions about why I've left, or why I'm not in the custom server, and why certain, why Leagues isn't running, or why, why there's third party organizations. But I think this was really good at clearing all that up. I mean, leagues, I mean, people have lives. Spy has a life. I have a life. Veo has a life. Colin has a life. Kalon has a life, Thomas has a life, whoever is involved still has a life. And, not everybody can be here 24/7 to moderate something as big as leagues. And with ITL, it's the same thing. And, like, I left just because of the same reason. I mean, it really all just comes down to we all grow up, and eventually we're all probably going to move on to other things. But, you got to give it to the next generation of people one day. And, you know, for right now, we still got our grasp on it. So, we're still the same people we are probably 2-3 years ago. So, we gotta keep the nostalgia factor, keep the game growing, keep the energy alive, and I think bring back public tournaments, bring back what made the community really so hype. I mean, it's not that the community's lost any of its spark. It's just I think the spark is there, but you can really ignite it into this huge flame. And it's something that you can't just do with one or two people. It can't all be on you and Veo because you guys are, obviously trying your best, but you can only do so much when it's such a huge community. It's two people in a community of like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people and different requests and different suggestions. You can have a suggestion box of sorts all you want, but it's up to having a team to actually fulfill it. You can't do everything at once. So, you know, I'm happy to serve you guys in whatever you guys need help in and be back.
You actually, I won't say another podcast because I'm still envisioning it, but I definitely have an idea for what we can do I'd say we'll start in late November and hopefully the campaign peaks during Christmas time. I definitely have an idea where I think you and Jakes would definitely be a huge help, but I would also need at least like 7 more people who are dead ass committed, not people who say they're committed, like dead ass committed to getting on TikTok. So yeah, I'll chat you up once I get all the logistics planned. But all right, I guess we're just about to hit the 1 hour mark, so I'd like to open up the floor to questions. So here I'll turn on requests. If anyone decides to, so just some ground rules: no swearing allowed. If you say any racial slurs, you're getting auto banned. No mutes, just a straight up auto ban. So yeah, I'm not interested in editing the video to taking out taking out something stupid you said. So actual questions, and yeah, just one question only. No follow up questions. Once you ask your question, you'll be sent back to the audience. So if you guys, anyone can request right now, if anyone wishes to do so.
Hello, my fellow community members.
We have Jake's coming up first.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is how how are you guys gonna come back and just do these tournaments? Like the campaign that you guys were just talking about in November and have me, Jake's you're talking about Spy was talking about how he's gonna have you, me, and some other people with a TikTok or something like that. So how will that work exactly?
I think he said that it's kind of in the works still. I mean, obviously this podcast kind of just sparked lots of these ideas. I mean, it's not something that just you can have ideas, but you still got to plan it out before spilling it all. I mean, but we'll all stay in touch. But I think basically what the main thing that we have to do is be consistent in our promotions because we get really good numbers on TikTok and stuff, but it's not enough to be sustainable long term unless you're actually consistently posting. Me personally, I don't have TikTok. I have never really had TikTok. I had that one account that I had for a little bit, but if I have to re-download it, so be it. But I mean, if we have people that step up and want to help make content, it's always open, and I'm sure Spy is open to ideas. The real campaign really consists of fully utilizing all of our social media networks and also connections with other groups of games or something. You can never say no to certain collabs. Like we had Blocks Link sponsor at one point or whatever, or a partnership. That's a big step for this community because at one point we had no concurrent players in the game. At one point, people only came in the game for VIP time bomb servers. There was one point where we got no people on the game, and then we grew to 600 concurrent players at once with dozens of servers open at once, public. So I think having such a big, such a big organization like Bloxlink to help us. If we could get more of that, I think that not only will the prizes get bigger, but the energy will be more alive. You're gonna get yourself more exposure. It's really just it's not that hard as long as there's consistency, and you gotta have like Spy said, a team of probably at least like 6 or 7 people to really fulfill the duties. It's having consistency in hosting. It's having consistency in having new events. It's continuing to have ways to monetize the game. I mean, the more ways that you can monetize customs, the more money we're going to get in, the more money that can be thrown back into the community, which is really what it comes down to. Because even though we said it's not all about money, I mean, when you're trying to get new people in, it's a niche market. It's not everybody understands the hype of hot potato, but when you're actually doing it in person, like on your phone or on your computer, actually playing it, it gets addicting after a while. The formula and the format is not something you just easily replicate. Like it's something that's uniquely us. And I think if you can find ways to grab people in with big prize pools, monetize off of like events and like different cases and stuff, like I think trading was a really healthy thing for the game. I literally get people that ask me for Krampus 299 every single day. I kid you not. Every single time I go in that game, somehow somebody's asking me for it. And it's not for trade, just an FYI. It's not for trade. But, everybody goes crazy over, trading items now. Like, that was a really good system that was implemented. And, it's a way to monetize the game. People want certain things. And it's come to the point that we've had it in place long enough that, like, some of the OG 299 pets are rare now. Like, 4 to 5 only exist, but some of these accounts are inactive, so only like 2 or 3 may be accessible. It's ideas like that help grow the community, and it really is a campaign that takes a lot of people. So that's my response. But I'm sure, I mean, a spy can add whatever he wants, but I think that like by him saying that he wants us to join, I think there's a lot of planning that goes into it. So it takes time.
Yeah, pretty much. I was just gonna reiterate the last 2 words he said. Yeah, it's process. It's planning. Just like leagues, we plan our seasons in advance. So an idea in September might actually start being executed in November. So it'll take time. I guess the next question is from River, who I'll invite to speak. Yeah, if you're one question.
Hello.
Yes, you're okay. River is in here.
If I'm being honest, honored to be up here. I wish to be like Falsey when I grow up. But anyways, Sue, I just wanted to ask you, like, out of all the time you spent here, who's the most annoying nigga you ever talked to in the whole community?
Um, that's a really interesting question. I would say in a constructive way, if I had to choose one person that I would say is annoying or a difficulty, it would probably be Betum or General Jet 8C. He had very radical views on every single type of person that wasn't him, and he also exuberated this negative energy into a space that really can't afford to get any more negative, which is why I think going forward, we really got to like work against the stigmas that are against the community of this negative energy. Obviously the fighting is kind of what's entertaining in the community. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't necessarily think we should glorify it, but I don't think it's really. I acknowledge the fact that that does make the community fun for some people. So obviously the community is the community, and it is what it is. But no one. I don't really hate anybody in particular. Like I don't have. It's when you're doing a job like this, your job is to remain unbiased, and your job is to think objectively about things. And if you come into things thinking, oh, I don't like them, oh, they're annoying, oh, I really like them. If you have these preconceived, you know, feelings about people, especially when you're hosting tournaments, it's easy to take it and run with it and be biased. But I try my best to never ever let outside influences affect the way I host, and I know everybody else is the same way. Maybe not everybody, I should say. Maybe not everybody. There's always a mixed bag, just like regular players. But I don't know. I tried to answer your question
Yeah.
constructively.
Yeah, it's very important that we all get along. While we may have disagreements, there is no place for hate in our community, and those who exhibit straight up racial or hate, like just hate on people for no reason, in terms of just straight up bullying, have no place in the community, and yeah, it's what gets you banned. The next, I guess we'll make this last one. I think it's Folsey. We'll invite him to speak.
Welcome, welcome. The sun is a planet 98.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Folsey, you're muted.
yeah. Can you speak? I like your profile picture. It's pretty cool. Oh, he's running.
All right. Uh, all right. With that being said, yeah, that's all the questions we have so far. Everyone asked one question who wanted to ask. Sue, yeah, thank you so, Tsunami, thank you so much for coming on here today. This was actually a really interesting podcast, and I loved hearing your perspective from someone who had to like obviously host tournaments at a high standard but with limited resources, which I think you did a good job, a really good job at doing. And yeah, the community wouldn't be what it is without your impact and your hard work. So for that, on behalf of Vale and CSD, thank you so much. We really thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak on here. I had no idea what this was when people came up to me at first and said that I was going to be offered it. I had no clue, and I was like, interesting. I mean, I like to yap, and I mean, it's something that it never hurts to elaborate on topics as such as the ones we were talking about, and I appreciate all the things that you guys do, and I'm looking forward to the future, and we'll stay in touch. But you community members, start getting excited because some exciting things seem to be coming now. So stay tuned.
100% for anyone who's wanting to get into competitive time bomb or tournaments. Reach out to Tsunami. Really good, really great guy to reach out to. Who'll give you insights, and yeah, he always has something for you. So yeah, with that being said, yeah, thank you so much, Sue, and hope to catch up with you soon.
Yep, of course.
All right,
Thank you, everybody.
all right.
Thank you, podcast.
Bye for now. Take care.
Goodbye.